So, you thought that Sarah was gonna drop ACOTAR 6 news too. She made a TikTok account. It looks like we're waiting a while to learn more about ACOTAR Book 6, even though we've been waiting quite some time. Sarah, you must make haste.
You must make haste!
That being said, the swirl of ACOTAR potential has brought plenty of ACOTAR theories to my For You page, and I would like to discuss them. If you have not read all of ACOTAR from like book 1 through Silver Flames, it is your time to exit. I don't think we're gonna be talking about Throne of Glass or Crescent City all that much, so if you haven't read those, you're safe, and if I do go into that, I'll put up a picture of the book that might contain spoilers, so you can mute the video if you need to. Goodbye to people who have not read all of the ACOTAR books. Please don't let me spoil you.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's get into theory 1, which is that someone is evil. Because while Sarah has not confirmed much about ACOTAR Book 6, she says that there is an unexpected betrayal coming for us. And I have seen many theories pop up about Rhys is evil, Mor is evil, Elain is evil, Azriel is evil. So I would like to discuss each one, and then I'll give you my best guess as to which one could be correct. Because I think one of them is.
Let's talk about the evil Rhysand theory that I really don't want to believe, but there are just way too many supporting facts. First off, Rhysand is Daemati, meaning he can read and control other people's minds. Rhys himself even said that he can control someone and they would have no idea. So we can't trust Rhys, and because he can control the minds of those around him, we can't really trust his closest friends either. And back when Feyre was painting those dresser drawers, Rhys was influencing her mind. Rhysand could have gone as far as impelling Feyre to go out and hunt for the family, which led to her offing Andros, which led to her going to the Supreme Court and then eventually breaking Amarantha's curse. Oh, but they're mates and they love each other. What did Feyre see when she looked into the Ouroboros mirror? She saw a demon, a frightening evil beast as her true nature, and later when she painted it, Rhysand loved it. So they could just be extra perfect for each other, and Feyre can't be trusted either. And in Silver Flames, when Nesta at first didn't want to train with Cassian, Amren was teaching Nesta, and one of the first things that she taught her was how to close off your mind. And then after Cassian and Nesta kill Lanthes in the prison, they asked Rhysand about the wild hunt, and he said he thought it was just a myth, and he shows them a book and he explains that there were creatures called Daglin that ruled before the Fae, and they hunted everyone else with vicious beasts. Nesta said that Lanthes gave her a vision in her mind what those beasts looked like, and she said that they're the same beasts that are carved into the pillars in the hewn city in the Court of Nightmares. In the final battle, when Rhysand is in his beast form, the way that he is described, he looks like the beasts that are carved into the pillars in the hewn city in the Court of Nightmares.
All right, first of all, Rhys is evil. The one that I think has the least possibility of being true. But it's fun to think about. So we all know that Rhys is a Daemati, which means that he can control people's minds to the point that he can control what they think, what they do, everything about them. And we know that Rhys is a morally gray villain type. We obviously love him, but overall, we understand where the idea of him being evil could come from, and we do know that Feyre, our sweet baby Feyre, when she sees her inner self in that Ouroboros mirror and she paints like an actual like demon. She says that inside of her is like a demon, and she gives a painting to Rhys for Christmas because of course she did. And he loves it. Like, he thinks it's amazing, and I do think that's weird. I think he just loves her so much that anything she makes, he's just like, amazing, Picasso, I love it. But the theories that I've seen do pull on this as a way of saying that Rhys is evil, he loves evil things. But that would also mean that Feyre is evil, and I don't believe that Sarah would have done that to us. We also have this question about the wild hunt, and Rhys sort of avoids this topic a lot, and sort of in combination with this is talking about the Daglin, which are creatures before the Fae that hunted with beasts, and I'm assuming that is what the wild hunt is. But the thing is that these beasts, the description of them, it's the same description as what we get as carved in the Court of Nightmares, where there's all those like etchings on the pillars and stuff like that, and that is also the same description that we get about Rhys's beast form. So theoretically, he could be one of these like Daglin creature things. I think that could be true. I think that could be really interesting that Rhys could have descended from one of these like ultra powerful beast situations because he is like a shifter. I don't know if he actually qualifies as a shifter, because it's not like Cassian and Azriel have beast forms or anything like that. So maybe he's from one of those lines. I feel like we could get some sort of interesting ancestry. I just don't think that this theory overall holds water, because it would have to imply that Feyre is evil as well. And it would also mean that her entire love story, this whole thing that she's gone through, was just all Rhysand's, manipulation and his authorship, which I just don't think is the case. Second up is Mor. Mor being evil is, I think, more compelling than Rhys being evil. We all know and we all joke about the fact that her power is truth. Because what does that mean? We've never seen her compel other people to tell the truth, but I saw somebody saying that
Azriel and Eris know something about Mor, and her power is withholding truth. They cannot, keeping them from telling the truth. Everybody is mistaking Azriel's obsession with Mor. I think it's just because he knows something that he can't tell anybody else, and he knows something deeper.
What if she's keeping other people from telling the truth? What if Azriel and Eris know something? Because we know that Eris has told us that, Mor maybe didn't tell us the full story about him rejecting their engagement and stuff like that. And so if Mor was holding something back about that story, what is it and why would she hold it back? Because Eris basically has told us he didn't leave her to die as in a brutal way that we think he did.
All right, I have a theory. Mor and Eris were supposed to be bonded and married and basically create an alliance. Everyone has always hated Eris because of this, and they're like, I want to kill this man, okay? This has been the consistency throughout the whole thing. He has watched his mom be abused and treated poorly and be forced into a mating bond that she doesn't want to be in and hates her life. I think that when Eris and Mor came together and met for the first time, I think that Eris realized that they were mates. However, because Mor doesn't really like guys, and also because she basically hated him from the beginning because she was being forced into the situation, she basically rejected the mating bond, or was completely oblivious to it because she didn't want it. I think that the reason why Eris didn't touch her, and it is very specific multiple times where he says, I left her untouched, or I didn't touch her, I didn't lay a finger on her, nobody did. Eris knew that if he were to touch Mor, even just touch her, that his father would say that is him claiming that Mor is his, and it would force Mor to be stuck in the Autumn Court, and she would have had to go regardless of what happened with her and Cassian. For the same reason, I left Mor again untouched at the border. Cassian says, you left her there to suffer and die. Cassian spat. Eris sneered, did I? Perhaps you should ask Morgan whether that is true. I think she finally knows the answer. I think that Eris walked away, basically also rejecting the mating bond, because he would rather suffer, lose his mate, than force her into a bond that she does not want. In the next ACOTAR book, Eris and Mor being mates would be revealed and would come up in conversation between Eris and Lucien.
One theory I saw was saying that Eris and Mor are actually mates, and she rejected the bond, and Eris knows what it looks like to be forced into the Autumn Court because his mom obviously probably had an affair with Elain, but she stayed in the Autumn Court because she was forced to, and he didn't want to impose that on someone else, and because he saw how hard that was for his mom. And so I could see that being a thing. I do think Mor is holding back on us. I feel like she goes on these little side missions all the time and we never know what's going on. And also I saw somebody saying that his shadows are everywhere and he's always so focused on Mor. And people are like, what if he knows something? She's using her truth power to keep him from saying something about her, but he is trying to maintain focus on her to make sure she doesn't do anything that could be dangerous to his friends. I think that's interesting. I don't know if Mor is actually evil. I think she's holding back on us for something, and I think if she had some sort of betrayal happen, it wouldn't be because she's evil. I think it would be for a reason that she thinks is right. Because overall, if SJM is saying that her power is truth, I feel like that is going to end up being a good power, something that we should see positively. Then on the flip side, we have that Az could be the evil one.
Hey book besties, we're back with more theories. Today we are talking about Azriel and the theory that he is a Prince of Hel. So now we're gonna get into the Prince of Hel theory. So in these readings, I came across a lot of mentions about Az and his coldness. Put that into context, many cultures view Hel as cold rather than hot. In Dante's Inferno, the final circle of hell is frozen solid, reserved for traitors. ACOWAR, page 429. The scars were rough against my fingers, but his skin was like ice, pure ice. ACOWAR, 565. Azriel's dark breeze was different than Rhys's, colder, sharper. It cut through the world like a blade, spearing us toward that army camp. And this is the big one. This is the most important. But it was the frozen precipice that Az had plummeted into that sometimes rose from the pit of memory. The beginnings of that frost cracked over his eyes now. Another thing that I think is very important is that Nesta's power is constantly described as cold. There have been multiple times throughout the books where she is called Death, capital D, death, death itself. And they talk about her frozen power, the silver flames that should be burning, but they're burning with cold rather than hot. And if Az is the Prince of Hel, then that would completely make sense.
He, over and over again, doesn't claim the Illyrians as his people. And the theory is that, you know, he has these shadows, which is just kind of weird. Like maybe he's a Prince of Hel, because the way he is described is very similar to that. He's often described as cold. Nesta's power is also described as cold, and she's like Miss Death. Like, so if Azriel is just as cold, it would make sense for that correlation to be there. I don't know if Sarah would do this to us. I could see Azriel being descended from one of the Princes of Hel. Like, I think that could be a theory. I don't think he's bad because of it. The one that I think is very plausible is the Elain evil theory. And now stick with me because I know a lot of people love baby Elain. There is a chance, I saw a theory and it makes so much sense to me, that Elain is possessed by Koche. We know that Elain's father, I believe, made some sort of deal with Koche. I am getting this from a TikTok because I don't remember this at all. Like, I don't know where we got this note about it, but it sounds correct to me. And notably, Azriel's shadows hide from Elain the same way they hide from Koche and the Cauldron. So like, overall, that's not good company. It would also make sense for why Elain hates Lucien so much, because Lucien is like light and fire, and if she is supposed to be this sort of evil, darknessy thing, that would make her very much not want to be around Lucien. The theory also said that Koche is a seer, and Elain is also a seer. But maybe Elain is not actually a seer, and Koche is just, you know, using his power through her. And we're gonna have to get rid of his possession somehow. I think this is going to, if this is true, I think that this is gonna partially involve Elain overcoming him herself, because her character so far has been so like timid, sort of, and like docile in a way where she just doesn't really stand up for herself. And I think that that is gonna have to be a major turning point for her character. And I think it's gonna be a big part of her romantic arc, because she is going to have to make the choice to overcome Koche. She's going to have to make the choice to pick between one of these guys, and maybe she doesn't pick, you know, the person that destiny has put her with, which would be Lucien. Theoretically, we're getting there. The most mild of spoilers for ACOTAR. If you've read ACOTAR, you know that Valg can possess people, which is their version of demons. So I could see it being with like Koche, if he's like sort of demon-ish. It would make sense with the lore of overall SJM-ness that Elain could have been taken over when she went into the Cauldron. That's why I think Elaine's is the most plausible. I think she could still go for Mor, but I think she likes Mor, which is making me wonder if Mor is sort of like a Kale character. If you haven't read the Throne of Glass series, one more very mild Throne of Glass series, but it's really not a spoiler, so choose whether you want to mute or not, but Tower of Dawn. I saw someone speculate that book 6 in the ACOTAR series is going to be like Tower of Dawn and be about Mor's story when she goes to visit Miriam and Draken, I think are their names.
I heard a theory that
but then it was
the
taken
next
off her
book
website.
is going to be similar to how like Tower of Dawn was. So like Mor was gone for like most of A Court of Silver Flames.
I would absolutely hate
And
that.
I would actually too.
And they're gonna put the next book as there's, and I don't know if this is really a theory or someone was just like saying like, oh LOL, what if the next book is just Mor's perspective of where she was the whole time during A Court of Silver Flames?
No,
But
I'm sorry.
No one
I
cares.
would
Sorry.
love you more.
I would hate this. I would hate it so much. SJM did it once, and she did it with Kale, and I ended up liking it, and I ended up liking Kale or whatever. But that took much fighting and much patience. I don't want to do it again, please. Elaine's endgame romance. Of course, we have the obvious option, Lucien, because he's theoretically her mate. So that's option 1 here. But she doesn't really like Lucien. Option 2, Tamlin. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Remember that one time in A Court of Thorns and Roses when Rhysand shows up at Tamlin's house and he finds Feyre behind Lucien and he's like, and who is this? And Lucien immediately jumps into like a best friend mode and he wants to help Tamlin out. So he's like, she's my betrothed. Yeah, and then remember that one time where Tamlin and Lucien show up when Hybern has taken Nesta and Elain comes out of the cauldron, and Lucien's like, she's my mate.
So, I know most of us are big Tamlin fans, and when Elain got dumped out of the cauldron, Lucien jumped, saying, that's my mate. And I think she is. But we also know that Lucien will do a lot to protect Tamlin. And he's done this before. When Rhysand showed up, when Feyre was still human and living with Tamlin, Lucien told Rhysand that Feyre was his betrothed, not Tamlin's, because he knew that he would take Feyre to hurt Tamlin. Or theoretically, he thought that was what would happen. So would it not make sense if Tamlin's mate comes tumbling out of the cauldron, Tamlin starts freaking out, but Lucien knows that Tamlin is more at stake in this moment. And so he could be like, that's my mate. But I just, overall, the way we see him talk to her after that, I do think that Lucien is her mate, but I do think it's like kind of interesting to think about that. If she is Tamlin's mate, because aesthetically it makes sense. Like, that's the only thing I'm pulling on right here, is that Elain looks like spring. Like, she is spring incarnate, which brings me to a very interesting theory that I saw.
This is why the true identities of both Azriel and Elain. Elain is the lovely fawn, because Feyre mentions that she likens Azriel and Elain to the lovely fawn and death incarnate, basically. So you have Azriel with all his darkness and his shadows and his torment and his scars, and then you have the lovely Elain who likes to grow things and care for things and tend to things. Goddess of Spring, Prince of Hel. You get where I'm going with this? Bonus chapter 2 of A Court of Silver Flames, we have, Azriel giving Elain the necklace, and it says that her breath hitched or something like that, and then it says his shadows skittered back at the sound, and then it said they always tend to vanish when she was around. So we know that light chases out darkness. Light and darkness are a perfect balance. They're polar opposites, right? Hades and Persephone.
I think I'm Team Azriel. I think a lot of us are, because Azriel, it sounds weird because he's like the 3 brothers, the 3 sisters, and everyone's like, oh, family. But like, obviously the boys are not related. They just call each other brothers. But he's like, it doesn't make sense that the cauldron would send you these 2 girls and their sister and have it be my 2 brothers and not me. And I do feel for Azriel in that, because that sucks. To have his brothers like fall in love with these 2 amazing people, and then there's like a 3rd one there for him and she's mated to somebody else. That sucks. But we did get a mention in this series that mates can reject each other. They don't have to be together romantically. And I wonder why Sarah would have brought that up if it wasn't going to be part of somebody's storyline. And thinking back, like if Elain is really under the possession of Koche, like maybe there's a chance that Koche is just manipulating Lucien and that's not his actual mate, or that it's going to be part of Elain's storyline to go against the grain, where she kind of forces Koche out of her, existence, and then also rejects the mating bond and just sort of like pushes away destiny and like makes her own path, which I think would be very interesting for her character arc. But like I said, spring incarnate over here with Elain. She loves to grow things. She is flowers. Like, it just makes sense. They call her the fawn sometimes, which is all very springy stuff, which would make sense for Tamlin, unless Azriel actually is a Prince of Hel. And then we have Elain, goddess of spring, Persephone. And we know that Sarah loves a good retelling. So it makes so much sense if their story, Elain and Azriel, is a Hades Persephone retelling. When I heard that theory, I had to sit and wait for a second for it to load, because I love that idea so much. And I love Elain and Azriel so much. And his shadows not being around Elain, that very well could be him relaxing and taking a break, because his shadows are his spies. And so when he's around Elain, if that's the only person that he can let his guard down around like that, it fits. The only catch here is that when Feyre was going to die having Nyx, Nesta changed Feyre's body to be able to have an Illyrian child and her own, which would make sense because she's with Cassian. She didn't change Elain. Why is there a plane? She didn't change Elain, and that always, to me, was like the confirmation that she's not gonna end up with Azriel. But we also have like this note where Nesta, you know, she took something from the Cauldron. She and the Cauldron don't necessarily have the best relationship, whereas Elain has been blessed. And like the theory that she might be okay anyways, I would like to hold on to that, because, you know, maybe another part of Elain choosing her own destiny is that she's maybe able to shift a little bit in order to have an Illyrian child. I genuinely hope that we don't get any more pregnancies in this series, because I just don't want it. But overall, if that was to be a problem, then maybe Elain is able to change that herself. I know Gwyn is there. Gwyn real. I don't want it. I know that Gwyn seems super sweet. I just don't want it. Theory 3, which I'm calling the absolutely not theory, is that Cassian dies. We know that Elain has seen a vision of Cassian dying, and for whatever reason, she told us out loud. But can you imagine, if Cassian dies, Nesta would be even worse off mentally than she was at the beginning of Silver Flames, because she lost a lot in that war, but I feel like she, you know, found herself with the help of Cassian. And not that Nesta needs him as a crutch, but if you take him away, I think it could send her back into a really horrible spiral. There's a theory I was saying that Eris and Nesta could then be each other's redemption arc, which I will not deny. They had chemistry during that dance at that ball in Silver Flames. But I just generally refuse this idea because it hurts too much. I can't imagine Cassian dying. Like, I just don't want to go there, and I hope that Sarah doesn't go there, and I hope that if he dies, she just brings him back. Sarah does have a history of letting characters that we love die, and then just like resurrecting them a couple pages later. And I don't think it's out of line to think that Cassian would sacrifice himself for one of the boys or Nesta. Or Feyre. I mean, like, he's a really kind person, and I do think that he would give himself up for other people. But I think he would get brought back. And I know a lot of people kind of like bash on Sarah for doing this, for like getting rid of characters and killing them, and then all of a sudden they're fine and back to life. But I think it's just because Sarah loves them as much as we do, and she just can't handle it. Theory 4 is sort of like a side theory, and it's that Feyre's mother was Fae.
This is kind of a theory, and I don't have much to add because I honestly haven't really given it much thought. But somebody asked, the sisters passed. Was their mother maybe a fairy too, or descendant?
I think she has to be.
I think so too, because I don't know how they would have gone into the cauldron and not died.
Yeah.
Well, and also the fact that, like, you're telling me that Feyre and Rhys were mates, but she was just this human in the human lands. How, you know? I think, and plus we don't know the mom's name. We literally don't. And the way she died seems a little suspicious.
I don't know if this would have any big repercussions on the story, but I think it's plausible because, first of all, how would all three of her daughters, make it through the cauldron without dying and without seeing major repercussions from that? Feyre, obviously, like, she was specifically, like, given power by Fae, so I can see why that transformation isn't, like, shocking. But the two daughters going into the cauldron and both of them coming out fine, like, we saw what happened to the human queens. So it seems weird that both of them would be okay. Also, this has bothered me for a long time, and I'm glad somebody else brought it up in this video, because Feyre and Rhys being mates, it makes no sense that he would be mated to somebody who's human. It only makes sense, like, it's a Fae thing. It's not a human thing. So how would Feyre be his mate if she spent the first, however, 19 years of her life being human, and then she's Fae for 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden she's Rhys's mate, Rhys, who's been alive for a really long time? That doesn't make sense unless she has a little bit of Fae bloodline, and then it would make sense to me. Additionally, all three girls have been able to handle some sort of special power. Feyre has to manage a bit of each type of power from all the different Fae, and I feel like that would take a measure of talent and potentially like hereditary power. And then obviously Nesta is handling the death trove, which a lot of people, they would lose themselves in that. And then Elain is a seer. It seems suspicious that they would not have some sort of Fae line. And apparently, I honestly can't remember, but a video I saw was saying that their mother's death was also suspicious, and it was, you know, part of a bargain, which bargains are usually made with the Fae, and maybe that bargain went sideways, but maybe she just never told her daughters about being Fae, because at this point in their political history, Fae and humans do not mix anymore. Like, they are on clearly opposite sides of the boundary.
It's been a minute since we've been unhinged, but I have an idea about Mama Archeron and her 3 baby Archerons. Right off the bat, immediately suspicious that her 3 children, when they became Fae, all had special powers. We've been over this before. What does this say about the Archeron mother? I think that she was Fae or something akin to Fae, witch, whatever, and I think she broke a bargain. That's why she died. She didn't die of typhus or whatever it says in the book. She broke her bargain. We're going to go to ACOWAR. We're going to turn to page 56, where Lucien is talking about bargains and what happens if you break them. If they break the bargain, it will claim his own powers, maybe kill him. Magic is all about balance. It's why he couldn't interfere with your bargain with Rhysand. Even the person who tries to sever the bargain faces consequences. If he'd kept you here, the magic that bound you to Rhys might have come to claim his life as payment for yours, or the life of someone he cared about. It's old magic, old and strange. It's why we avoid bargains unless necessary. Right? Basically, you break a bargain, that old and strange magic is going to come for your life, your powers, or the life of someone that you care about. Right, now we're going to go to page 16 of ACOTAR. And this is Feyre talking about her mother. My mother, imperious and cold with her children, joyous and dazzling among the peerage who frequented our former estate, doting on my father, the one person she truly loved and respected. Again, from Feyre's perspective, we see that the mother saw Nesta as some kind of social weapon. She saw Elain as someone that she can essentially marry off one day, and she didn't really think of Feyre at all. Really, the only meaningful interaction the mother really had with Feyre was to make her promise to look after her family when she passed away. I think the Archeron mother was a Fae woman, or again, something akin to Fae, who made a bargain to give up something to be with Papa Archeron. I think she met him, she fell in love, and made a bargain so that she could stay in the human world and live as his wife and bear his children, etc. But she didn't fulfill her side of the bargain. Something happened. She didn't do it. It was probably a pretty steep price. She didn't fulfill her side of the bargain, so this old magic came for her. And not only did it take her life, but it also affected the rest of her family. Remember, Papa Archeron's ships went missing, they were plunged into poverty, etc., etc. Not to mention, Mama Archeron being something other than human will also explain her lovely daughter's powers.
But yeah, those are the big theories that I've seen come up over and over again. I would love to hear more of your theories. I know there's a ton of them out there, and we obviously all can't be right, but I'd love to hear what you think in the comments, especially who you think Elain ends up with, because that's the one that's really just, I'm so stuck on it. Like, I can't figure it out, and this has been a really intense love triangle because I do care about Lucien, but I think right now I'm Team Azriel. Please like this video if you liked it, click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Katelyn, thanks for watching. Bye.